Awesome. So how long have I known you now, Ruth? It's been
About 6 years.
I was going to say at least 5 years.
Yeah, maybe 5.
I haven't had the opportunity to actually spend a lot of one-on-one time, in-person time with Ruth, but over the last 5 to 6 years, I've gotten to know Ruth virtually and in some meetings and things like that. And Ruth is actually a pretty well-known lady. She's traveled around the world helping people take care of animals. Primarily, I would say horses, but not just horses, also cats, dogs, and other animals. But she has been an expert in the horse world. And I don't actually want to say it incorrectly. It's equine, right? Equine care.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to read just a few minutes, a little bit about Ruth. I'm not going to go into the whole bio because it's very extensive. So I'll try to highlight a few in this very long bio because Ruth has a lot of experience. So, and how do I say your last name? Is it Mitchell Golladay?
Golladay. Mm-hmm.
Golladay. Okay, so Ruth Mitchell Golladay is a Texan. The great state of Texas, received her graduate degree in physical therapy from the University of Iowa in '72. And after working as a staff physical therapist at Parkland Hospital and serving as chief physical therapist on the cancer rehabilitation program at the University of Texas, opened a private practice in Dallas in 1978. She attended the Institute of Natural Healing Sciences in Colleyville, Texas in 1991 for massage therapy training. She is nationally board certified in therapeutic massage and body work and state licensed. Additionally, she attained her equine body worker certification in 2004, and in 2022 became a certified animal aromatherapy specialist. Ruth began her myofascial release education in '87, has taken all John Barnes MFR courses, including equine, and was a senior instructor, coordinator, co-lecturer, and primary lecturer for John Barnes, teaching over 130 courses for him from '88 to 2002. From 1999 until her resignation in 2001, she was the primary lecturer for the Barnes Equine MFR courses. Pretty amazing. In 1990, Ruth opened Equine Therapeutic Center in Texas. It was then based at Smith Mountain Lake, Virginia from '98 to 2018. In '99, after additional education, she extended the practice to include the care of dogs. The business is now based in Texas, in the Dallas area, from April through October, and in the Rio Grande Valley of Texas from November through March. In both locations, she provides therapy for horse, rider, and dogs. She uses her biomechanical knowledge to assist in determining a problem with the horse, human, or dog, and then primarily utilizes myofascial release and doTERRA essential oils to decrease the symptoms and or dysfunction. So in addition, when necessary, she uses laser, electrical stimulation, ultrasound, red light, acupoint therapy, and specialized taping techniques. So as you can see, Ruth knows a lot about animals, and which is why, of course, I'm so excited about the fact that you're here with us. We're going to try to keep it easy enough for everyone to understand, right, Ruth? She's going to pull up some slides here in just a couple minutes. But before we start the slides, I want to ask her a few questions just to get to know her a little bit more in terms of her oil use before she jumps into fire hosing us with all kinds of yummy, delicious information. By the way, again, thank you, Ruth, for joining us.
Oh, thank you for the invitation. This is exciting. Quite an honor.
Yeah. Well, it's an honor for me. It's an honor for all of us. So how long have you been using doTERRA essential oils, by the way?
About 6 years.
So right around the time when you and I met, that's when you started.
I met you when I was I think I started using the oils in June or July and then met you at convention in September. So I was a bit bug-eyed and like, yeah, when I was introduced to a blue diamond, and it's like, I don't even know what a blue diamond is. And at that time, and I didn't know that much about the oils. And so, yeah, it was, but after being at that convention, it really fired me up to get serious.
And we need more. I mean, like, as a side note, it amazes me just your everyday pet owner with cats and dogs and all kinds of things. People are crazy about their pets. They treat their pets like they're real human kids.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, Amy and I, as we've traveled, and sometimes we've actually done a little bit of animal care for other people, house sitting in the past. And watched animals for people, and people are very specific. They really, really take it very, very seriously. When I was a kid, it didn't seem like people put as much money and time into pets, but now they really do. They're really understand the importance of really paying attention to what they're feeding their animals, what they're giving to their animals every single day, what they're using. If you love your animals, just like if you love yourself, we shouldn't be putting things on and in our pets' bodies if it's toxifying their body, right? We need to be a little bit more sensitive to that, right? Wouldn't you say, Ruth, that we see a lot of that still?
Yeah, and I think, people are spending, I think the recent number I saw was like $41 billion a year on their animals in the United States. And you're right, they're watching what they're feeding them, they're making sure they go to the veterinarian. And yet we still see, I had an example yesterday. I met with a lady yesterday morning, and she has a bearded dragon and she has a small dog. And I introduced the oils to her, and she said, "Oh, I just love to smell stuff." And she named her 3 favorite oils. And she said, "I got a diffuser and I've been diffusing those." And so as we got further into the conversation, I said, "Where did you buy your oils?" "Oh, I just got them online someplace." And I said, "Well, how are the animals doing?" And she said, "Well, it's funny you should ask. I've got an appointment with the veterinarian because the dog keeps like sneezing and the dragon is like very lethargic." And I'm like, "We got to get you away from those oils." I said, "I can tell you right now, it's what you're diffusing that is causing these problems."
Hmm. Yeah, and animals tend to be a lot more sensitive than us, right? They're picking up a lot quicker, a lot more quickly than what we would. But if that's giving the animal an issue, especially if you're diffusing synthetic junk that has chemicals in it, I mean, that's definitely
Absolutely.
an animal is going to be way more sensitive a lot quicker. So 6 years. Do you remember having a specific aha moment with the oils for yourself, and where you realized, wow, this isn't just like smelly stuff. This is health, right? Do you remember having an aha moment?
Well, I think probably at that first convention, because as a physical therapist, I am ethically, legally, and professionally bound to only recommend evidence-based products. And when I saw all of the science behind the doTERRA oils, I knew I was in the right place and I was with the right company. And so it kind of grew from there. And then, I was the primary caregiver for my husband for several years, which is why I am not as far along in my doTERRA business as I would like to have been by now, but I was slowed down with having to care for him. And I think, a true aha moment was, I mean, I've had several, but what really got to me was on April 23rd of 2022, as he was laying in the hospital, having difficulty breathing, he said, "Is there something you can put on me that'll help me breathe?" So of course I grabbed my breathe, I put it all over his chest, I put it underneath his nose, and he within seconds said, "Oh, thank you, I can breathe much better now." And then a couple of minutes later, because he was going in and out of lucidity, and a couple of minutes later, he said, "Are you still doing that oil thing?" And I said, "Oh, yes, I am." And he said, "Well, don't ever quit because they really work." And he was dead 6 hours later.
Hmm.
That was quite an aha moment. I mean, he really was very encouraging to me in his last few hours of life, and, really was testifying that these oils work.
What a message.
That was a big one. Yeah.
I don't take those messages lightly, like that was kind of a timely thing as he
Yeah.
was transitioning. One of the last things he said is, "Don't stop doing this."
Yeah.
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 For me, this is more than just something I do as a business.
Yeah.
And I know that, based on your story here, of course, isn't just about a business for you. It's about the amazing dramatic changes and assistance that it gives people. So I'm gonna I'm going to ask one question that's unrelated to my questions or oils, just for video purposes before we go further, because this will be saved and we'll be able to use this later. Can you angle your video camera a little bit so that it's not cutting your chin off? Because the video is like cutting a little bit of your, perfect. That is perfect.
Is that better?
Even if that is better. Thank you so much.
Sorry.
When you were talking, some of it was getting cut off. Yeah.
Sorry.
Now we get to see your whole beautiful face.
Oh, thank you.
That's powerful. That's a powerful story. Absolutely. I was going to ask you about a testimonial, but you just shared with me a testimonial. Any other testimonials for friends or family or anybody else you've helped, maybe even recently, or even for an animal? Any recent testimonials that you found really kind of that you'll never forget? I know I'm putting you on the spot here.
Yeah, because there's so many. Golly.
Horse. What about for a horse?
Think about it. Yeah. Oh, well, lots on the horses. Well, I mean, I recently taught a class in Maryland, and we, you've got, 12 people going out around the horses, and these are horses that don't know these people. The people don't know the horses, and the horses aren't quite sure what's going to happen. And we found, we settled them all down using adaptive, and they were all then very willing to, they were curious about what we were going to do. And they, none of them felt threatened. And so I think that's, a good testimonial.
Absolutely. Okay. So I'm going to ask one more question, and then we're going to jump into what you're going to share with us today. And this is always one of the hard ones for people to answer is, do you have, and I'll make it easier, do you have 2 or 3 favorite oils that you go to personally in your life?
Yeah. Adaptive is one of my very favorites. I use that every single day. And frankincense, of course, and copaiba. Those are my 3 favorites.
How do you use frankincense and copaiba, if you wouldn't mind? This is helpful for people that are brand new to oils.
Okay, I do 2 drops of frankincense under my tongue every single morning. And only with doTERRA oils can you do that. And then the copaiba, I take 2 copaiba soft gels before I go to bed every night. I do that on the recommendation of Dr. Hill. And then of course, if anything ever happens that I've got swelling for any reason, like if I've got even a bug bite, and if I don't have the other, like I don't have Purify or some of the other things available to treat a bug bite, because you pinned me down to 3 oils, I can always use copaiba on the bug bite to get rid of the edema. So yeah.
Beautiful. Do you hear the sound behind me, by the way? Is there a loud screaming sound behind me that you can hear?
No, the only thing I could hear was our usual Wednesday, they test the tornado sirens. I could hear that back here.
It sounds like they're doing that here. There's like a really loud siren going off, so I thought maybe it was really loud. Okay, good. I'm glad you all can't hear it. Perfect. Okay, great. So without further ado, I'm going to let you go ahead and take over. I've made you co-host, Ruth, so you should be able to pull open the screen and share with us some of this juicy stuff that we're gonna learn today about oils and animals.
Okay, can you see that?
I sure can. Fire away.
Okay. Well, there's always the question about why do people even want to use oils with their animals? Well, animals are asked to participate in a lot of activities that's really not natural to them. Horses don't come out of the womb knowing how to be hunter jumpers or how to do dressage. And dogs don't come out of the womb knowing how to do agility and that kind of thing. And so many of these activities that we ask them to do, especially these athletic things, are the causes of injury, or if not injury, soreness and that kind of thing, or any kind of injuries can happen at any time. Anybody who knows horses knows that, you never know what's going to happen. Illnesses happen. And so, all these are reasons for using the oils, as is the fact that allergies are becoming rampant in the animal world as well as in the human world. And I think it is because of all the toxic chemicals that we're exposed to and the animals are exposed to every day. And the thing that I always point out to people is I'll say to somebody, how tall are you? And they'll say, oh, I'm 6 feet tall. And I'll say, okay, so that means that your nose is about 5.5 feet from the floor. But I said, your dog or your cat's nose is only a couple of inches away from the floor. So they really pick up a lot more than we do. And the fact that their olfactory system they have many more smelling senses than we do. And so it takes much less for them to be compromised than it even does for us. And the reason that doctors and veterinarians don't tell us about all this toxic buildup or the fact that there are natural products to take care of it is they're not taught that way. They are taught to give us allopathic medicine. And it just doesn't even occur to them that all these toxic things that we're using throughout the house could be the cause of a lot of the issues that we have.
Yeah, I never really thought, sorry, excuse me for interrupting, but I never really thought about the difference in space between, the fact that animals are right at the ground. One of the things that Amy and my wife and I talk a lot about is being very aware of the fact of like where you live. If you live in a city and you're taking your animals for walks, for example, if you've got areas where they're heavily spraying with pesticides, just how much, they're walking right in those areas. So if you're taking your pet on a walk, if you're doing it at home, of course, and you're not having pesticides sprayed, but if you're walking your animals through areas that are heavily trafficked and they're sprayed with pesticides, they're stepping right in it. And of course, I know pesticides after a specific period of time, they say that they dry. Once it's dry, it's not effective. It doesn't really affect anybody. I'm not sure that I necessarily believe all that, but
yeah.
But I think that we need to be definitely paying attention to, like you're saying, just how close the animals are. Thank you for pointing that out.
Yeah. And like you said, you could be walking along and maybe that pesticide is now dry, but they get it on the bottom of their paws. Then they go home and they lick it. And at that point, it's not dry anymore.
Good
They
point.
have just possibly reactivated it. And so, yeah, it could be a real issue.
Yeah. Good
So,
point.
yeah. And the other thing is, it's always interesting to me that people say, oh, you should never use oils on your animals. It's just not safe. And I always, or they will, there's this mental thought pattern that whatever is done last to the animal is what caused the problem. So for example, if I put an essential oil on a dog or a cat or even a horse this morning, and people say, oh, look, he reacted. That may not be the case at all. They're not thinking about, maybe yesterday he had his vaccinations, or this morning before you put the oil on them, you put some flea and tick medicine on them, and are we now getting a reaction maybe to that instead of to the oil? Or what are you using to wash your blankets with or their bedding with? Are you using dangerous detergents or fabric softeners? And then, not only the fabric softeners, but I look at the dryer sheets. The dryer sheets, I think, are probably the most toxic substance in our entire home. Is the dog eating just dry kibble with no nutritional quality? Same thing for the cats. Are they getting secondhand smoke? Like, are you a smoker? Or maybe you're not a smoker, but you've got those plug-in air fresheners, or you're spraying them, or maybe you've got some of those fancy candles that are infused with essential oils. And the problem is, what essential oil is being infused into that candle? And now you're burning the candle, and can the cat or dog leave the room? There's a lot that could be going on. And then this last one I think I've got down here is, have you used other essential oils on them? And did you dilute them? And I have a classic example of this. I had a lady, I went to see her dog, and he had patches all over his body where there was no hair at all. And I said, what's going on here? And she said, well, I tried some essential oils on him and he didn't like them. And I said, well, what did you use? And she told me which oil she had used, which was the oil that came to my mind to take care of his initial issue. And she said, but he won't like that if you use it. And I said, well, is that are these patches where you put the oil? And she said, yes. And I said, did you dilute it? And she said, no, was I supposed to? Well, she had basically, I mean, she was using not a doTERRA oil to begin with, but even if she had used a doTERRA oil and used it incorrectly, this could have happened. And so, yeah, dilution is absolutely critical. And I don't.
So I have a question for you. Do you have a chart that you use when you're sharing with people so they know exactly how to dilute to make it easy?
Yeah, it's coming up in a couple of slides and they can all screenshot it if they want
Yeah,
to.
so for those of you who are watching this, even the recording, she's going to be coming up with a slide that shows you some of the dilution so you can screenshot it and keep it handy. One of the things I wanted to address also about the food, I became aware of this probably, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 years ago, maybe a little longer, just how terrible most of the dry kibble that people buy at the store is, for not only the fact that there's no nutritional value to it, but just how toxic it is. Like very, very, very processed, very toxic, lots of chemicals and preservatives. In fact, it's some of the worst things made in factories is what we're feeding our pets this every single day. And what's really kind of, I guess I shouldn't say hilarious, it's sad, is that, we need to be thinking about the fact of what is that animal actually going to eat if they were wild in the nature. If they were a wild animal in nature, what are they actually eating? Because a lot of the foods we're feeding to cats and dogs in particular are things they wouldn't even eat in nature.
Right.
Dogs would not be eating a bunch of grains. They just don't naturally do that, right? So I think that's another thing that is lost, and I feel like more people need to be really thinking about what is my animal, what is my pet actually eating, and would it be something they would naturally eat? Their body is actually designed and going to process that specific thing naturally, right?
Yeah. And another thing that I should put on this slide is the issue of cat litter. There are all kinds of cat litter that they say, oh, it's scented with this, or essential oils have been added, or whatever. And again, that can be very dangerous depending on, what is put in there. And, the cats spend a certain amount of time in the litter box every day. So that's a lot of exposure. Plus that litter box may be kind of diffusing up into the air. And so, yeah, they're getting far too much of that.
Yeah. And even the ones that say essential oils, like most of those, from what I understand, and maybe I didn't hear this part because you cut out a little bit on my end, is all the fragrances being used. Most of those fragrances have tons of phthalates in them, just like whenever you're burning these cheap candles and these Scentsy products and all these other things that are just full of chemicals.
Yeah.
It's the same thing we're doing to our cats. And like you're saying, they're literally sitting, a lot of times they're in an enclosed unit.
Yeah.
Smelling that, being very sensitive, nose right down to all that stuff, and just literally breathing it in.
Yeah. Not good.
No.
Good. Yeah. Poor kitties. So to use the oil safely with the pets, obviously people need to be familiar with the pet's health and what issues they might have. We know that we never use the oils in any orifices, the ears, the eyes, the nose, the genital region. And we're a little bit cautious with animals that are pregnant, nursing, very young, or on certain medications. So, one of the things that's always important to me is doing a really thorough evaluation. This is like a wellness consult for animals. We don't just say, oh, yeah, your dog is afraid of thunderstorms. I want to find out a lot more about the dog. Just like when you tell me, oh, I have arthritis, I'm not going to just go with that. I'm going to say, let's talk about your whole health. What are you eating? This, that, and the other thing. Get into all of that. So the eval is very important.
I'm glad that you brought up the term wellness consult, and hopefully it's okay for me to share for just a second on this connection.
Absolutely.
You and I talked a few days ago just to make sure that, we were clear on what we were, going to be sharing today. And we talked a little bit about wellness consultations for animals. And then also we brought up humans. And maybe you're going to share a little bit about this too later. I don't know, but I'll jump it just for a second. It's one thing, just like with human use with essential oils, we typically come in using these products when we're having an issue. right? We're using the oil for, I got, this seasonal allergy, or I've got discomfort in the joints, or I've got some digestive challenge, or whatever that is. And so I start using the oils to address that thing. And that's how most people start. I started whenever I had a knee injury, right? I had a problem. But then I realized very quickly, this is a lifestyle product. Why was I having these issues in the first place? And I think the same thing goes for pets. We need to realize it's not just about, solving a challenge. We're already talking about phthalates and toxic chemicals in the products and toxic chemicals in the food. Let's think about the foundational items that probably are causing, or at least connected to, a lot of these health issues. Using essential oils and some of these natural products are all about switching over and reducing the amount of these toxic things that we're using. And the same thing, the connection between our pet and us. And I'll let you share more about this, Ruth, but the fact is we should be thinking about ourselves being around our pets, and how important it is for us to actually live that holistic lifestyle. How important it is for us as humans to actually get a wellness consultation with somebody like Ruth, or a person who's very well versed in the oils. If you haven't, by the way, here's a little plug. If you're here in the group and you have not ever received a wellness consultation, which is giving you your protocols morning, afternoon, evening, to know how to use those oils you got, leave a comment down below this video, and we're going to make sure that you get that wellness consultation, because that's super, super, super important that you do that. And the connection, Ruth, with I think there was something you were sharing with me a couple of days ago about the issues that your animal exhibits, some of the challenges being connected to its owner, right? What can, yeah.
Yeah, we mirror each other. I mean, a lot of times, like I was telling you, in the horse world, for example, they may say, well, the horse seems to all of a sudden be having back pain. And so then you get talking to them a little bit, and it turns out that they were rear-ended like 5 days ago and they're having back pain. Or, the example I always use when I teach, and I got this from a veterinarian at the University of Tennessee. He was telling us that, the person will bring in like a little dog that should weigh like 8 pounds, and the dog weighs 20 pounds. And the owner says something like, well, I don't know what's the matter with little Fluffy. He just doesn't have any energy anymore at all. And the veterinarian looks up at the owner, and the owner is, 300 pounds. And so the veterinarian says, well, the thing that's going to help Fluffy is to take Fluffy for a 2-mile walk every single day. And he says, who are we treating? We're not just treating Fluffy, we're treating that owner. And so, yeah, and I know they definitely mirror our emotions, because after Gary died, my cats went 10 days without eating much food at all and drinking very little water, to the point where I ended up taking them to the veterinarian because I was afraid they were all going to become dehydrated and die. And I tell everybody, after a $510 visit, she told me not to worry, that they were just grieving and that they would start eating soon. And all 3 of them started eating the next day. And I wanted to kill them. It was like, $510. Why didn't you start eating yesterday? I'd have canceled the appointment. But yeah, they, and so if we're sad, they're sad. If we're mad, we'll sometimes see them act out. There are just a lot of things like that. And so, yeah, I think it's not just a matter of looking at the animal. This is a family situation. It's not just, here's the animal, here's the human. No, it's a family, and let's look at the whole family.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Good stuff. Okay. So I know I interjected. We'll let you keep moving.
That's fine. All right. Now, we don't use the oils topically on an animal if they are already getting some type of a topical medication from the veterinarian, or they have a dermal patch, or if you have applied any kind of topical flea or tick prevention within the last 48 hours. And that's all just to be sure that we don't interfere and cause any kind of a reaction there. We never give xylitol products to the pets. This would be fatal. And so in the doTERRA line, keep them away from the toothpaste and the beadlets. And the thing that I always tell people is watch out you may know to keep the toothpaste or the beadlets away. But what if your little child or your little grandchild is there and they're playing with the little container of beadlets and, oh, these things are fun, and they put one in their mouth and then they give one to the dog or to the cat? That will kill the animal. And so, yeah, really be careful about watching those xylitol products. And if the animal does have any kind of a negative reaction, we know that oil doesn't mix with water. So what you would always do is just put a little more fractionated coconut oil on them. If you don't have that, you can use olive oil or any other kind of oil like that you happen to have around the house. But just know that the oils are excreted very, very quickly, a little bit longer in cats. It does take 38 hours with cats, but in horses, it's just about an hour, and dogs about 9 hours. And so, you know, and negative reactions are exceedingly rare if you're using the oils correctly. So, yeah, always keep them in a safe place so that they can't be knocked off the table. Those of us who have cats know that it is the cat's obligation to push everything off a table that's on it. And so what we don't want to have is broken glass, because we don't want them stepping in it. Plus, that could, if that's a full bottle of oil and now it has burst open, you could have a toxic amount of oil that would not be good for that animal. Keep your diffusers in a safe location, again, so that they can't be knocked off the table. And now this one has caused a little controversy, but people say never pet your animal after you've put oils on yourself, and that's not really true. I just say use a little caution. Like if I put something on me, like for example, wintergreen, and we'll talk about that in a minute. If I put wintergreen on my hands and then like rub it on my neck or something, I might wait a couple of seconds until I know that my hands are completely dry, and then it's totally safe to go ahead and pet the animal. Okay.
Good to know. And
Yeah.
by the way, for those of you who are, during this presentation who have questions, feel free here in the group. If you have a comment or a question, I'm going to be watching. So if you do have a comment or question, I'll make sure I bring it up to Ruth so she can answer those questions.
Okay. Oils that we always avoid around cats and dogs are tea tree, birch, and wintergreen. Now, this is primarily for topical use. You can go ahead and diffuse these as long as the animal has the ability to leave the room. And it's funny because before I knew all of this, I love wintergreen, and I was diffusing it in a couple of rooms in my house, and my 2 boy kitties will go and lay by the diffuser. They love wintergreen when it's diffused. It's also interesting to me that my girl kitty doesn't want anything to do with it. So, that would be something that a scientist could research for us. Is this something hormonal? Don't know, have no idea, just throwing that out there. But we want to avoid these topically completely on these animals. Now, other oils that we want to avoid in either internally or topically for cats are primarily the citrus oils. And so, just write yourself a note that it's mainly the citrus oils. But again, you can probably diffuse these without any problem at all. Other cautions that we kind of keep in mind when we do that wellness consult is, does this animal have a history of epilepsy or seizures, any kind of clotting or bleeding disorders? Are they on any diabetic type medications, or are they pregnant? And what we always want to do is let the animal help us decide which oil is best for them. And so we call it self-selection. And this is me with my kitty cat, Jim Bob. And so we always approach the animal first with the oil's lid on. Remember, they have an extremely strong sense of smell. And so, they can smell it quite well with that lid on. And if they like it, they're going to like lean into it. They're going to maybe lick and chew. They may even try to eat the bottle. Horses are famous for that. So you always want to have a really good hold on that bottle if you are approaching a horse, so that just the lid is kind of above your fist, so that, they cannot grab it and swallow it, because that would be totally dangerous.
Wow. I didn't realize
Yeah.
they were so, with my cat, she's super. Most of the time, if I even get an oil around her, close to her, even with the bottle on, she's just like, yeah, it's a little too close, buddy. But
Yeah.
that's pretty amazing that horses will just try to lick it and eat it.
They will try to eat the bottle. They'll try to grab it from you. Yeah. And, especially if you're using something like peppermint, because there are a lot of horse treats that are peppermint. And if they think that's a treat, they are going to try to grab it out of your hand. And that would be very bad. Now,
Wow.
a negative reaction would be if they like turn their head away, or they even just try to get away from you or walk away, that kind of thing. But I always say, don't go by like a knee-jerk reaction. So like if I hold an oil up and they initially turn their head away, it might be because they've never smelled anything like that before. And it's like, whoa, what is that? And they turn their head away. And then all of a sudden they're like, well, wait a minute here. What is that? And then they come back to it.
Yeah.
And so then when they come back to it, if they then turn their head away, that's a no. But they may go ahead and start the licking and chewing, or lean more into it or whatever. So yeah, don't be real hasty when you're doing the self-selection. Give them a chance to just have that initial reaction of, gee, I've never smelled anything like that before. What is it? And then, oh, maybe I do want to try that and see what it's about. So yeah, anytime you're diffusing around an animal, you should watch them for about the first 15 to 20 minutes. And always use water-based diffusers, and always, always, always leave the door open so that they can leave the room. That is the number one thing with diffusion.
Yeah.
Diffusing around cats, some more caution might be these. Obviously, we talked about birch and tea tree and wintergreen, but some of the rest of these are what we call hot oils. And so again, as long as they can leave the room, you're probably going to be totally safe. Around the dogs, again, primarily the hot oils. Be a little bit careful, but again, if they can leave the room, it may not bother them at all. And remember that the animals, like humans, have individual chemistry. And so they may love it, just like my two boy cats love wintergreen. This I'm not so sure. I mean, I don't want to spend any time on this, but on the internet, you'll see people say that all of these oils are dangerous to use around animals. Well, the ones over on the left that are in black are not doTERRA oils. And the reason they're not is clearly because doTERRA has not found a source for these oils that is safe and that they can, consistently use. Now, the ones on the right in the red are also listed quite frequently on the internet. They are provided by doTERRA, and we've already talked about how to use them in the correct manner. We said that, most of these you can go ahead and safely diffuse as long as the animal can leave the room. So these are not definite no-nos. All the ones in black are definite no-nos at this point. Oh, there's Yarrow. Sorry.
Yeah, I wanted to respond to one of the comments that you made about diffusion, and because that's been a common question people have had, and I'm glad you touched on that. If an animal is having an issue or doesn't want to be around it, as long as that door is open, because a lot of people get really afraid. They're like, I'm not going to diffuse any oils in my whole house. I have a 3,000 square foot house, and I'm not going to diffuse anything in the whole house because my cat lives in the house. And it's like, you're perfectly safe to diffuse in your bedroom, leave the door open. And if Kitty wants to come in, Kitty will come in. If Kitty doesn't want to come in, Kitty won't come in, and it'll be perfectly fine. As long as they have a space, that's what you're saying. You're confirming that as long as they have a space to go to, that's not right there in a tiny little enclosed. So if you're in an RV and it's a tiny little space and you're diffusing a bunch of oils and your cat's in there and can't get away, that could be a problem, right?
Yeah.
But if they have if they have a place to go that's, not in the same room, they should be perfectly fine. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Yes. And the other thing, now that you brought that up, is there are some people that have systems in their house, like air conditioning and heating systems, where I guess you can put oils someplace and it'll go through the air conditioning and heating system throughout the house. I would not do that.
Okay.
Yeah. For the same reason that the animal has no place to go to get away.
Right.
Then it is going throughout the whole house. So
yeah. But if you don't have animals in the house, that sounds like a pretty amazing thing.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does, doesn't it? So, okay, let's see. You can always, if you don't have a diffuser or you don't want to use one for some reason, you can always use a water mister and just spray into the air. You can let a cat or a dog or even a horse directly inhale from your hand, as well as the closed bottle of oil. You can put oil on a cloth or a cotton ball or in the pet's bed. Those are all good ways to do it, but always use a humidifier that is rated for oils. And what's ours called? Is that the Dawn? The big
Yeah.
one?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So the Dawn one is a great one to use. In an air filter, but we just talked about that. Be careful about that one. Okay, so now topically, there are several different ways you can apply these to the animal. You can spray a small amount into their brush prior to grooming them. Our doTERRA shampoo is safe for the dogs and the horses. It's safe for the cats too, but I don't know how many people wash their cats. You can put it directly on the area that you have identified as the issue, but what I would always say is apply it first to your hand and then to the animal. I would not just drop it onto the animal. You can put it on the tips of their ears. You can put it on the top of their head, on their neck, their torso, their rump, or their abdomen. Now, when you're putting it along their spine, what you want to do is start at the top of the tail and move forward toward their head against the hair. And the reason you're doing that is to get that oil right down to the skin. Then you can go ahead and brush them out to get their hair going in the right direction, because otherwise it'll feel very uncomfortable. But that's what you really want to do. And, you know, the reason we have you apply it to your hand first is obviously we don't want to contaminate a roller bottle or a bottle of oil, because if you use it on one animal and then go to another animal, there's the contamination. So put it on your hand, and then on your hand then goes on the animal. And on dogs, if the dogs will tolerate it, you can actually put it on their reflex points, which is between the pads of their toes. Okay. You can try that on cats. Good luck. Call us from the emergency room.
Kitties.
With dilution, we've got to remember that animals are not just small children. And I think a lot of people out there in the world think that. Like humans, I said earlier, they're totally individual, and their response is going to depend on their body's chemistry. You're going to dilute it much more than you might think, and always observe the animal's behavior. And if you're not getting what you thought you were going to get, you can carefully increase the amount of oil. But I would caution against that. I would watch the animal. I would do the same thing for 3 days in a row, then reevaluate before I went ahead and increased the amount of oil. And here is the one that if they want to, they can take a screenshot. This is the dilution percentage. Cats 0.5 to 2%, rabbits 0.5 to 1. And then it talks about dogs under 9K or 20 pounds. And the fact that we can go up to 3% for larger dogs. And then with horses, 5 to 10%. And if they're hot oils and the horse has sensitive skin, usually on horses, we don't have to dilute the oils at all. So does that help?
Absolutely. Yeah. It sounds like horses are really open to essential oils
Mm-hmm.
for the most part, right? Besides some of the
Very much so. Very so.
When it comes to cats, for example, let's say that you are, one of the best ways, of course, since we're putting in our hand, is to actually create yourself a roller bottle, right? That would be a good way to do it. So if you have a 10 ml roller bottle, I don't even know how many drops, I used to know this by heart, a 10 ml roller bottle, you'd probably be looking at, if you filled that roller bottle up with coconut oil, how many drops of oil would be in there? Probably what? Just
one
drop?
Probably.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I'm very conservative. I'd always start out at the 0.5%. And like I said, then I would do that for 3 days, see if maybe the cat's a tiny bit better. And so I'm thinking, maybe I need to go up a little. So then I would go up to 1%, do that for 3 days and see how the cat's doing. And then, increase if you need to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, kitties are sensitive. Sounds like rabbits are about the same. Actually, even because their bodies are, of course, much smaller as
Much
well.
smaller. Yeah. And the cats do have are missing an enzyme that many other animals have. And that's why we have to be really careful with them. Yeah. An enzyme that would help them to, absorb the oils.
Or metabolize it, probably, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, internal use for animals, I say is best done with directions from someone who's certified in how to use them internally. But I'll go this far and say internal use for dogs, no more than 1 to 2 drops at a time. We like to mix it with their wet food. You can put it in a capsule topped with a carrier oil if your dog allows you to pill them. 1 drop per 2 cups of drinking water. So that shows you how little we use. In a natural toothpaste, you can use 1 drop of essential oil to 2 tablespoons of baking soda and enough coconut oil to make a paste. So that's how you make a little natural toothpaste for dogs. And of course, they're, that if it's toothpaste, they're taking it internally. But I think we also need to remember that the old saying is whatever you're putting on your body, you're putting in your body. So on all those topical uses, that's why we are so careful with the dilution, because it is going into the body. Okay.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
What would be a comment like for dogs? Because I've never actually given any of my pets oils internally, not because I've felt like it was going to hurt them, but I've just never had a situation where I felt like they needed to have that, right? So what would be an oil that maybe you would give to a dog in their wet food, like 1 drop?
Breathe
Okay.
might be one. Um,
Not Digest Zen.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Digest Zen. Yeah. I'm trying to think of some of the other ones that we use. Depends on the situation. And
It's pretty rare, right? To use
yeah, it is rare.
internally.
And I did not mean breathe. I meant Digest Zen. So get rid of that breathe. So yeah, there are some oils that we might consider for, I want to stay compliant here, joint and muscle issues.
Okay. Gotcha.
Okay. Okay, so this one right here, never, 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 never put oils in a cat's water. It's exceedingly difficult to get cats to drink water anyway.
Right.
And, in the wild, and I don't know, there are a lot of people that don't know this, never have your cat's water bowl next to the food bowl, because in the wild, cats will never drink water that's next to a kill or to a dead animal, because they are afraid that the water's contaminated. And so they're very sensitive to any smell of water. So if you put any kind of oil in the water, they will not drink it. And if they won't drink that water, then they may get off water completely, and then they're dehydrated, and then that's not a good situation. So never put oils in their water. Okay, horses, there are many more oils available than for cats and dogs. And like you said, they love them. We can do what's called a modified aroma touch session on the animals, on the horses. For those of you who are not familiar with aroma touch for humans, it has been modified and is a great technique for horses. Like I said earlier, usually we don't have to dilute oils for the horses. And aromatic use is primarily done by letting them smell your hands or using it on their tack or smelling from the bottles, because it's a little difficult to use a diffuser in the barn because the barn is huge and the horse is just in this one little area. And so you don't know how much of it they would get. Okay, 10 favorite oils for cats. Balance, copaiba, digestin, frankincense, helichrysum, juniper berry, lavender, myrrh, on guard, and Roman chamomile. If people want to take a screenshot of that, they certainly can. And Yeah, and Charlie, I go back to your question to me earlier. Two of mine are on there, copaiba and frankincense, and I told you adaptive, but I sure would like to have on guard all the time too.
Yeah,
So,
for balance, let's give an example for people who are new or maybe a little uncomfortable with the idea, simply because a lot of cats will not let you even get close to them, not necessarily because it's going to kill them or hurt them, but they're not a big fan of the smell, right? If they don't like the smell, they're just going to get out, right? But if they do, the exact opposite, they'll hang out, they'll sniff it, and I've even heard of cats licking an oil or trying to lick it. So
yep.
with balance, how would you typically use it? You'd of course dilute the 5%, put it on your hand, and then possibly, where would you put it on a cat? Like near the back end on its back, or where would you do it?
On their spine, like we said earlier. And actually with the cat, I might start, instead of down at the tail and going up, I might start kind of at the shoulder level and just go up to the head and back down, because that's one area that they cannot easily get to lick themselves.
Gotcha.
But I mean, it's not going to kill them if they do lick it. But
Okay.
and with balance, I would, you can certainly diffuse it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And then if we go to the 10 favorite for dogs, we've got Aroma Touch, Back to Balance, Breathe, Copaiba, Digestin, Frankincense, Lavender, Lemon, On Guard, and Peppermint. Again, if they want to screenshot that one, they can.
I did. I definitely got it. It's so interesting. I watched a video that Cesar, the what is it, the animal whisperer, the famous
Yeah.
you know
Cesar Millan. Yeah.
yeah, and I watched him actually use doTERRA oils with in a video with a dog that
Whoa.
had been very anxious around other dogs. And so they tested the lavender oil. They rubbed some on its spine and tested it within just a few minutes, brought it into a room with other dogs. And it was amazing, the noticeable difference in his comfort with being around other animals, like just amazing. So I think that's a good example of, like, if you have a dog that has issues with other dogs or gets very super reactive or feels very uncomfortable, or maybe you take your dog for a walk and it's not responding very well or gets triggered very easily, maybe it just needs something to help calm its nerves. So lavender would be a really good oil to use on the spine a few minutes before you go out, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. And then 10 favorite for the horses: Aroma Touch, Balance, Copaiba, Deep Blue, Intune, Lavender, On Guard, Peppermint, Tea Tree, and Wild Orange. Again, if they want to, they can screenshot that.
I'm going to do a screenshot of that. Nice.
But then the next one says, but with horses, I really also want to add 4 other ones: Adaptive, Digestin, Frankincense, and TerraShield. And then over here in the middle, it's because of all these things we run into on horses so frequently: abscesses, Cushing's, electrolyte support, EPM, fungus, healing salve, hormone, leg wraps, mites, muscle and joint rub, rain rot, rash, skin and soothing and natural salve, a gel liniment, thrush, and vaccination issues. So, again, that's why you got to do the wellness consult. What really is the problem, and which oil is going to be best to address, or oils, combination of, or do we need to put a blend together that is going to address that specific issue? So, it's interesting. Last night I was having trouble getting to sleep. And so I was scrolling on Facebook, and I cannot remember. I don't know if it was doTERRA or who it was that asked, what new oils or products would you want? And there were like 2,500 answers, and I didn't scroll through all of them, but I scrolled through a bunch of them. And I think the number one thing on there they asked for was a pet line. And they, and I understand why people want that, but it would be extremely difficult to do that, because you know, what is that specific animal's issue, and how, what, you know, and if we're using self-selection, what are they going to, you know, what are they going to like? What are they going to choose? And so we've got to have the ability to flex with that. And so I don't know how they're going to do that, if they're going to do that. But yeah, a lot of people were asking for that. And right now, if we need something for any of these, like abscesses or anything, we can do a lot of different blends depending on what the animal chooses. And so, you know, some people said, I'm tired of having to mix it all up myself. Well, that's kind of just the way it is.
Yeah, I mean, if doTERRA comes out with some pet related products or oil blends, I'm sure that they'll probably play it on the safe side in terms of dilution. They'll probably be very well diluted and according to what would be safe for most animals to be around. So it'd probably
Right.
be a 0.5% dilution like you're talking about, I'm guessing. But yeah, like you're saying, I totally get, because of that variance, that it's probably going to stick to, hey, just follow these protocols and create your own mixtures, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, we're blessed at doTERRA that we have an entire veterinary advisory board, and it consists of, I think, 5 or 7 veterinarians. And so they certainly could make some recommendations, but I think the thought of having an entire pet line is probably several years off, if at all.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
yeah. So, okay, what are my resources for what I've been sharing with you today? Well, my education is a certified aromatherapy specialist, and I actually got that certification from Janet Rourke, who is a veterinarian and lives near Austin, Texas, and she is on the doTERRA Veterinary Board. I also use the ADR, which is the Animal Desk Reference, written by Melissa Shelton. There is another veterinarian who's on the board at doTERRA, Mia Fizo. And then I'm in several Facebook groups conducted by veterinarians. I have my own Facebook group called Animal Essential Health, in which I have a lot of information that I provide. And I have completed my 2nd level of certification, and I've learned a little bit about reflexology, the 5 Chinese elements, acupressure points, and more. So my final words, I guess, are I would only recommend doTERRA oils. I feel like they are the only ones that are safe and effective. Like I said, they're the only ones I have found that are evidence-based. And let me just say, I know that a lot of people say, well, I buy such and such oil and it's pure. Well, pure is not the issue. I mean, I can grow lavender in my backyard and put 1 drop of lavender into a bottle and fill it up with water. And I'm not lying if I tell you this contains pure lavender. But the question is, what are the conditions under which that lavender was grown? Is it consistent? And most importantly, is the chemistry consistent from year to year? I grow the lavender in my yard this year and next year and the year after. What's my chemistry? With doTERRA, we know that chemistry is tested constantly, and that chemistry is always the same. And with chemistry the same, we know what the consistency is. With that consistency, we know what the potency is, and from the potency, we know what dosage we can recommend in order to get the outcomes that we can expect year after year after year. So the other thing, a lot of these other companies will say, well, we test our oils too. Well, they're not lying if they do test them once a year. doTERRA tests every single bottle.
Every
So,
batch.
yeah, batch, sorry. And so, yeah, doTERRA oils are safe if we're using the right technique, the right dilution, and we're carefully observing the animal. I would definitely caution people against buying cheaper oils for their animals, because it could result in a fatal incident. And so just when you share your your oils with your animals, I think they're going to be very, very grateful. Yeah, it's fun to share the oils with our fur family. And yeah, so it's just another way to increase your business if that's what you're trying to do. Share it not just with humans, but with animals as well.
Absolutely. And like we said, a lot of people nowadays are really, really paying attention to what their pets are getting. And in fact, to go along with what you mentioned with consistency, one of the components of consistency with doTERRA is that, 5 solid rounds of testing that they do to make sure that they have a consistent product. Sometimes I'll run into people that say, I'm just going to raise my own I'm just going to harvest my own essential oils. Well, there's typically, most people do not have any way to test to make sure that they're not getting pesticides and chemicals in their, what if someone next to your house or next to your property is spraying chemicals, spraying pesticides? How is that affecting the plant? Well, it very likely is affecting the plant. So that's super, super important. Also, one other thing, I will never forget someone that I used to work with in the oils world who decided at some point that we don't really need oils. You just, this doing this as a business doesn't make sense. Not everybody needs oils. It's not even really needed. And it's so interesting. It's like, well, it's not really about do I need to use this every single day? I mean, this is the thing. I've shared this many, many times. Like, I just found out recently that I read somewhere in an article that we're exposed to, I think it is 100 times the amount of chemicals and synthetic substances in one day compared to our grandparents in a whole year back when they were kids. So, I mean, the exposure to so many things that people are not even aware of. This is very, very intricately connected and meshed in with a lot of the problems we're having in the first place. Mm-hmm. That's the reason why you see cases of so many different issues. And I'm going to, again, stay compliant. I don't want to state too many disease states or give it too much power, but it's because of the exposure of toxins that we have in our life. Right. And what animals were exposed to 100 years ago, 50 years ago, even 30 years ago compared to now, same thing with us, is dramatically different. And so, yeah, you could say, well, we don't need essential oils. Well, essential oils is one of the most powerful sources of bioactive chemistry when used properly to help the body come back to balance, to help the emotional state come back to balance, to come back to homeostasis. And that's for pets and for humans. We don't talk about these products just for, I'm on a soapbox. We don't talk about these products just to sell products. We talk about these products because they're safe, they're effective, and they're powerful. I mean, this is the reason why I'm still doing this 14 years later, right? This is the reason why I can't keep my mouth shut. And I'm so glad that we talked about pets today. I'm going to go ahead and look at comments to see if anyone in the group I don't have any comments or questions. It looks like we have 2 live viewers right now. Do either of you, just for the sake of, if you have any questions, feel free to go into the comment section and we'll ask Ruth, we'll ask away for Ruth. Give them just a minute here. It looks like you did such a good job that you covered all the questions before they even came out. And by the way, this is going to stay in the group, Ruth. So if we, a lot of people will probably watch the replay on this. Okay. So if you do have a question, for those of you who do, go ahead and feel free to tag Ruth. I'm sure Ruth is okay with that, right, Ruth?
Absolutely.
You can tag her in your question. And I'm sure when she sees the comment, when she gets around to it, she'll answer those questions. Because I know a lot of you might have questions. Maybe a lot of you have never even used your oils with your pets. And you've really been interested in it. I know for me, this has been super helpful and has given me a lot more comfort and opened up my knowledge base more for using. Do you have any websites or resources online that you would highly, and maybe you already put this on one of the slides, are there any websites that you would suggest that a person can go to and refer to for protocols or safety related information?
They can ask to join my Facebook group, which is Animal Essential Health, because I've got a lot of recipes and whatnot out there.
Okay. Do you mind putting that in the, in fact, I'm going to go ahead and put that in the comments now. Well, actually, you know what? Can you go ahead and get the link to that group and put it in the comments when you get around to it? That way people can just go into the comments and if they want to join, they can. Does that sound good?
Do what?
You said it's a Facebook group, right?
Uh-huh.
Okay. So can you copy the link to that group and put it in the comments here underneath the video when you get around to it, when you
Oh,
think of it.
okay, sure. Yeah. Yeah.
That way, if they're interested, that's open for anybody to join if they want to learn more about.
Yeah, they're asked some questions, so that I keep out the bots, the people
Okay.
that don't belong in there. So that and the questions are simple, just, the usual. Are you gonna follow the rules? And,
Are you going to be good?
yeah, yeah,
Because if you're not going to behave,
yeah.
no
So yeah, I'll be happy to
spamming.
do that.
Okay, awesome. All right. This has been awesome. I really appreciate it. You stayed into our 1 o'clock time. Yeah, that's perfect.
Super, super.
Nice.
I cannot thank you enough. This was really an honor. I love to share my passion with other people. And, I love animals and will do anything I can to help them.
Absolutely. And in the future, for those of you here in the group, Ruth is here in the group. So anytime you have an emergency or you're just worried about something, feel free to just pose the question in the group. That's what we're here for. That's what this community page is for. Not just for yourself, but any question you have about essential oils. If I can't find the answer, I'll probably refer to Ruth because I'm not the animal expert. She is.
Don't
So,
know that I'm an expert, but I can help in any way I can.
well, I appreciate it. Okay, we're going to sign out. Thanks so much. And
Thank you.
yeah, absolutely. Have a good day, Ruth.
Thanks, you too.
All
Bye-bye.
right, bye-bye.